Welcome to the Flame Tree Myth and Fiction podcast.
We're back. It's 2026 and that means a brand new year and a brand new season of the Myth and Fiction podcast. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season and start to your year. I know I did. The Flame Tree office shut its doors over the Christmas period, so we've all had some respite, but as of today, our doors are open. Metaphorically, of course, because it's freezing, and normal office hours have resumed. Now, here at Flame Tree, we live somewhat in the future, and not just because of our science fiction titles, but because we are also a proud and well-established publisher of calendars and diaries, which means that while you and I are still getting used to writing 2026, the design team has already plunged deep into 2027. We spend so much of our time talking about the future that we occasionally forget what year we're actually living in. But today, we're giving 2026 the attention it deserves.
For many people, the new year is about fresh starts, resolutions, new habits, clean slates. But it's also a moment of closure, a chance to reflect on everything the previous year brought with it. So, today's episode sits between those ideas, beginnings and endings. Our first story is a modern tale from our anthology Odin. It's by Ketchum, and it's titled The Chains That Bind. As I'm sure you've all guessed, this one draws heavily on Norse mythology, and in keeping with this episode's theme, it navigates the ultimate ending, or Ragnarok. But I'll let the author, Ketchum, introduce it fully.
Hi there, this is Ketchum, author of the story The Chains That Bind. I'm a speculative fiction writer from Pittsburgh, PA, and enjoy putting a weird spin or strange vibe into every story, dark or light. I'm a member of SFWA and a Horror Writers Association, and my work has been published with Air and Nothingness Press, Flame Tree Press, and many other publications, including the short story collections Legio Damnati and its sequel, Civili Bellum. I'm here today to speak about my story and inspiration for writing it. This is a story with themes of endings, of inevitable partings, of the possibility of fresh new beginnings, and staring down the great unknown. In it, the three Norns of Norse mythology, embodied by the maiden, the mother, and the crone, work in a 1920s Depression-era style shack while listening to a battered old tube radio broadcasting news of the coming of Ragnarok, the end of the world of gods and men. They begin work on a series of tasks, the crone untangling a giant ball of wire at the back door, feeding it inside for the mother to work on spinning a wheel into a metal yarn, for the maiden to then knit into a giant chain at the front door. All the while, they lament the fate of poor father as news continues to squawk out of the radio. In completing their work, they break a number of chains previously imprisoning some, while building another chain for... Sorry, no spoilers. That's all I can say. Their duty done, the maiden, mother, and crone opine about what will or will not come next, to the music and lyrics of We'll Meet Again by Vera Lynn. The inspiration for The Chains That Bind came from a number of sources, ever since first watching the classic movie Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. The ending struck a chord of resonance with me, with Vera Lynn's gentle lyrics set against a backdrop of blooming mushroom clouds. Is it the ending or the beginning? An ending and a beginning? Years later, when a friend of mine took over as coordinator of a short story contest with a theme of forging, I had to write a story. I had to write something to send in. I mean, of course I had to. It's one of my good friends. I had previously coordinated the same contest that he had won. I recused myself until the end of the process. I got to mulling over different possibilities, with tons of them floating around my bean. I have plenty of trouble spots in writing, but am never short in ideas. Eventually, the notion of tying that Vera Lynn song to a story about Ragnarok hit me, and I was able to swiftly tie it into a story that would fit the theme of forging perfectly. Of course, my traitorous friend and his readers wrongfully overlooked my stunning masterpiece. No, he loved it really, but they received so many great stories that mine did not win or place. As any author will tell you, this is the life of a writer. You can never take it personally, and we enjoyed talking about the story over coffee. As it happens, I got another rejection while prepping for this very recording. But then the submission grind truly began. A lot of editors and mags really liked The Chains That Bind. though they all inevitably passed. When the Odin Call came out from Flame Tree Press, however, there's an Easter egg hidden there. I felt it would be a perfect fit for the anthology. To my pleasure, the editors agreed, and that is the legendarily mundane tale of how my story came to you, first in print and now in audio form. Chef's Kiss. Enjoy.
Now for the story, The Chains That Bind, by Brandon Ketchum, read by Francis Bodiam.
The Chains That Bind by Brandon Ketchum. On a dusty plain, a house built with wooden slats nailed together by prayer breaks the monotony of the flat horizon. From the hovel, a song's warbling notes drift out to disappear on harsh winds carrying the first fat flakes of winter snows. Inside, a battered tube radio stands in a corner of the lone room. The music and lyrics to "We'll Meet Again" fill the house. 3 women at a ramshackle table drink tea from chipped ceramic cups. No fine porcelain or silver service for these simple women. The middle-aged mother hefts the kettle. "More tea?" The young raven-haired maiden holds out her cup. "Yes, thank you." She turns to the eldest, whose skin is thin as old parchment across knobbly bones. "Would you like to polish off the cornbread?" "Too kind," the crone replies. She gums at the cake. After the meal, the mother snaps her fingers, changing the radio to a rousing jazz number. The maiden scrunches up her face, snapping her fingers in turn. The jazz morphs into a lilting love tune. The crone shakes her head at them. Mid-song, the soothing notes jar to a stop, and Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries booms from the radio. "How dramatic," the maiden says. The crone considers. "Fitting, though. It's about that time, after all." The maiden nods back. "Seems like it." "Do we really have to?" the mother asks over the rising notes. "Can we escape our fate, you mean?" the maiden retorts. The mother considers. "No, I don't suppose we can." The crone claps her hands once, the sharp sound and its reverberation temporarily drowning the radio, then rubs them together. "Well, let's get to it." The chairs scrape hard enough to create splinters as they rise. The maiden switches out the Wagner's crashing opus for an energetic show tune. The crone hobbles and places her chair by the open back door. A ball of twisted metal wire blocks the back porch, so massive it blots out all light. Sitting, she sighs, leans over, and begins unwinding the tangle. Once the crone finds the end and gets enough slack, the mother takes the wire end to the centre of the house and feeds it through a spinning wheel. She seats herself and begins to pedal. Soon a refined metal yarn emerges from the spinning wheel, piling up near the front door, where the maiden sits. She, in turn, takes up the yarn and begins knitting. Links of intricate chain emerge from the clacking needles, forming a coil on the front porch. As the coil grows, a gust of frigid wind blasts through the front door. Swirling snow blots out the sun, a funeral shroud over the world. The maiden flexes her fingers, barely pausing in her knitting. Temperature's dropped. Snow's really piling up out there. Click-clack go the knitting needles. New links land clink-clank upon the growing chain. "Supposed to be a record-breaking winter," the mother says. She pedals to a measured beat, not so fast as to overcome the crone's efforts, but fast enough to supply the maiden's. "More like 3 winters together," the crone says, cackling as her gnarled fingers move nimbly through the rough wire. The mother smiles grimly. "More like all winters at once." A shriek of wind emphasizes her words. "Poor father," the maiden laments. "Poor father," her partners echo. The crone clears her throat, changing the music to an instrumental number full of mournful woodwinds and slow, deep brass notes. The light in the house dims. An audible snap comes from the ball of wire. The crone can now see a sliver of winter sky between the ball and the porch roof. An animal howls in the distance. "That's one," she exclaims. The two other women nod in satisfaction, bent to their given tasks. The mother arches her back while continuing to pedal. Yanking and tugging the metal wire abrades the crone's mottled skin, drawing blood at points. She ignores the hurts. The maiden shivers at the cold. At least the chain is piling ever higher, creating a windbreak. "Maybe this weather will slow those wild beasts, keep them from stirring trouble," the mother says. "Don't be daft," the crone scoffs. "Nothing can slow them." "Not now," the maiden agrees. "Not ever," the crone adds. "Never again." "Poor father," the mother laments. "Poor father," the others reflect. The mother clears her throat, and the radio commences a passionate instrumental that at once fills the heart with hope and evokes a certain sadness. One moment the notes inspire awesome imagination, the next plunging into depths of misery. Now the crone has so reduced the ball of wire that she sees beyond the porch to a massive mound of snow half the house's height. Another snap reverberates from the ball of wire. A trick of the wind playing over the drift evokes a hiss. She shrugs and calls over her shoulder, "That's two." Her partners nod in satisfaction. A telegraphic series of beeps cuts the music off, and a tinny male voice comes on the radio. "Ah, Harold Hermald here, bringing you dire tidings from the Rainbow Radio Network. Crime rates are up all over. Folks are afraid of going out at night. People are panicked in the streets. Now it's worse because war is coming. Yes, war with a capital W. A war to end all wars. The war. The humdinger, folks. The big whammy. Troops are mobilizing. Factions are gathering, preparing for an epic clash." Harold Hermod continues, but the women stop listening. The maiden tugs her mouth into a half-frown, half-smile. Isn't there always a war? "A way for insecure men to measure their valour," the mother sniffs. The crone hoots. "Ha! And women, plenty of vainglorious women, raring for a fight." "Mr. Hermod never fibs or stretches the truth," the maiden puts in. "War to end all wars," the crone says. The maiden shakes her head. "A war to end us all," the mother coughs. "Time is short." "Poor father," the crone laments. "Poor father," mirror the others. All three, at their tasks, look to one another. Poor everyone. With feverish intensity they resume, working up a heavy sweat despite the frigid air. The spinning wheel is a blur, the sturdy wooden contraption whining as the metal spins. The maiden's needles clack rapidly, like swords in a duel. In the back of the house, the crone's bones creak as she unfolds wire. Music, smooth music, pours from the radio. A waltz to lighten the collective mood on the other end of all those millions of radio sets. The mother's foot taps up and down faster than the 3/4 time rhythm. A snap, louder than thunder, and the crone straightens the last kink from the metal wire. From the horizon, cresting the mountain of snow now dwarfing the house, a cruel and mocking laugh emanates. "That's 3. The wire whips as the last of it whisks through the spinning wheel. Mother rises and stretches her back. The maiden's needles spill the last of the fine chain, and the pile obscures the doorway, filling the porch and cutting off the one light. "Well, we're finished. The chain is finished," the maiden says as she rises. "Everything's finished," the mother agrees. The crone claps her hands with a thunderous boom. The radio goes silent. Yggdrasil has fallen. The world tree is no more. "Poor All-Father," the maiden laments. "Forgive us, Odin." "Poor gods," the mother laments. "Forgive us, Asgard." Poor Midgard, the crone laments. Forgive us, world of men. They come together in a circle, hands clasped, eyes clouded. Words flow between the Norns, as if spoken by each all at once, if they are even spoken aloud. We've broken the wolf, the serpent, and the trickster's chains, woven a new chain. It will hold. Odin is chained, can't fight, can't rally his valiant Einherjar. The warriors of Valhalla will be too late. Odin is helpless, not for long, long enough. Howls echo everywhere. Unchained Fenrir will swallow them all. Hissing overcomes the howls. Unchained Jormungand will flood the land. Laughter drowns Midgard. Unchained Loki will sail to the world's end. Ragnarok, the end of the world. The Norns' eyes clear, and they gaze sadly at one another. Come, the maiden urges. The age has died. The world has died, the crone corrects. All is dead, the mother exclaims. The Norns each shuffle to one of 3 unoccupied corners and take up packed carpet bags. Turning to the room, they share a bittersweet smile. Wish we could have returned to Jotunheim before the end, the crone says, wiping at a tear. I do miss it so. The mother drapes an arm over the woman's stooped shoulders. Such a beautiful hall we had there, beside the well of fate. I wish I remembered it better, the maiden admits. I get flashes of sunshine and laughter, but little else. They gaze from a house held together by faith and fate, a house beset by lashing winds, half buried in snow. They step onto the front porch. Beyond, the plain gawps empty and black, signifying nothing, a lack of matter. Midgard is no more. Sunshine's gone, the mother notes. Will there be a rebirth, do you think, the maiden asks, like in the newer legends? Or, the mother says, is existence finished, as the old legends fate, as we fated? Oh, either way we get to retire, the crone says. A cascade of cackles and chuckles. The Norns fall into each other's arms, laughing and weeping. Clashes of weapons reverberate through the heavens. Upon the Bifrost Bridge, Fenrir swallows Odin and his Einherjar. At the gates of Asgard, Thor slays the serpent Jormungand, but poisoned walks only 9 steps before falling dead. Loki sails on a ship crafted from the fingernails and the toenails of fallen warriors to finish the gods off, from thence to sail into darkness. As one, the Norns straighten, clutching their carpet bags, and step into nothingness, swallowed by the void. From inside the collapsing one-room house, the radio kicks on. We'll meet again.
I love tales like this, where a well-known mythological moment is told from an unexpected perspective. That's really at the heart of our Myths, Gods and Immortals series. I'll admit, this was the first time I'd ever encountered the Norns, the 3 goddesses who shape the destinies of gods and mortals alike. I knew the idea existed in Greek myth, but learning about their Norse counterparts gave me a fresh angle on Ragnarok. Now, most of our endings to 2025 weren't as dramatic as the end of the world, hopefully, but they were endings nonetheless, so let's flip the coin. Where does it all start? For that, we're jumping into the Norse creation myth. This next story is from our Sun Rising collection, so let's listen to How All Things Began from Norse Mythology, read by Olivia.
How All Things Began from Norse Mythology. Once upon a time, before ever this world was made, there was neither earth nor sea, nor air nor light, but only a great yawning gulf, full of twilight, where these things should be. To the north of this gulf lay the home of mist, a dark and dreary land, out of which flowed a river of water from a spring that never ran dry. As the water in its onward course met the bitter blasts of wind from the yawning gulf, it hardened into great blocks of ice, which rolled far down into the abyss with a thunderous roar, and piled themselves one on another, until they formed mountains of glistening ice. South of this gulf lay the home of fire, a land of burning heat, guarded by a giant with a flaming sword which, as he flashed it to and fro before the entrance, sent forth showers of sparks. And these sparks fell upon the ice blocks and partly melted them, so that they sent up clouds of steam. And these again were frozen into hoarfrost, which filled all the space that was left in the midst of the mountains of ice. Then, one day, when the gulf was full to the very top, this great mass of frosty rime, warmed by the flames from the home of fire, and frozen by the cold airs from the home of mist, came to life, and became the giant Ymir, with a living, moving body and cruel heart of ice. Now there was as yet no tree, nor grass, nor anything that would serve for food in this gloomy abyss. But when the giant Ymir began to grope around for something to satisfy his hunger, he heard a sound as of some animal chewing the cud, and there among the ice hills he saw a gigantic cow, from whose udder flowed 4 great streams of milk, and with this his craving was easily stilled. But the cow was hungry also, and began to lick the salt off the blocks of ice by which she was surrounded. And presently, as she went on licking with her strong, rough tongue, a head of hair pushed itself through the melting ice. Still the cow went on licking, until she had at last melted all the icy covering, and there stood fully revealed the frame of a mighty man. Ymir looked with eyes of hatred at this being, born of snow and ice, for somehow he knew that his heart was warm and kind, and that he and his sons would always be the enemies of the evil race of the frost giants. So indeed it came to pass. For from the sons of Ymir came a race of giants whose pleasure was to work evil on the earth, and from the sons of the Iceman sprang the race of the gods, chief of whom was Odin, father of all things that ever were made. And Odin and his brothers began at once to war against the wicked frost giants, and most of all against the cold-hearted Ymir, whom in the end they slew. Now when, after a hard fight, the giant Ymir was slain, such a river of blood flowed forth from his wounds, that it drowned all the rest of the frost giants, save one, who escaped in a boat with only his wife on board, and sailed away to the edge of the world. And from him sprang all the new race of frost giants, who, at every opportunity, issued from their land of twilight and desolation to harm the gods in their abode of bliss. Now when the giants had been thus driven out, all Father Odin set to work with his brothers to make the earth, the sea, and the sky, and these they fashioned out of the great body of the giant Ymir. Out of his flesh they formed Midgard, the earth, which lay in the centre of the gulf, and all round it they planted his eyebrows to make a high fence which should defend it from the race of giants. With his bones they made the lofty hills, with his teeth the cliffs, and his thick curly hair took root and became trees, bushes, and the green grass. With his blood they made the ocean, and his great skull, poised aloft, became the arching sky. Just below this they scattered his brains, and made of them the heavy grey clouds that lie between earth and heaven. The sky itself was held in place by 4 strong dwarfs, who support it on their broad shoulders as they stand east and west and south and north. The next thing was to give light to the new-made world. So the gods caught sparks from the home of fire and set them in the sky for stars, and they took the living flame and made of it the sun and moon, which they placed in chariots of gold, and harnessed to them beautiful horses, with flowing manes of gold and silver. Before the horses of the sun, they placed a mighty shield to protect them from its hot rays, but the swift moon steeds needed no such protection from its gentle heat. And now all was ready, save that there was no one to drive the horses of the sun and moon. This task was given to Mani and Sol, the beautiful son and daughter of a giant. And these fair charioteers drive their fleet steeds along the paths marked out by the gods, and not only give light to the earth, but mark out months and days for the sons of men. Then All-Father Odin called forth Night, the gloomy daughter of the cold-hearted giant folk, and set her to drive the dark chariot drawn by the black horse Frosty Mane, from whose long wavy hair the drops of dew and hoarfrost fall upon the earth below. After her drove her radiant son, Day, with his white steed's shining mane, from whom the bright beams of daylight shine forth to gladden the hearts of men. But the wicked giants were very angry when they saw all of these good things, and they set in the sky 2 hungry wolves, that the fierce grey creatures might forever pursue the sun and moon, and devour them, and so bring all things to an end. Sometimes, indeed, or so say the men of the north, the grey wolves almost succeed in swallowing sun or moon. And then the earth children make such an uproar that the fierce beasts drop their prey in fear, and the sun and moon flee more rapidly than before, still pursued by the hungry monsters. One day, so runs the tale, as Mani, the man in the moon, was hastening on his course, he gazed upon the earth and saw 2 beautiful little children, a boy and a girl, carrying between them a pail of water. They looked very tired and sleepy, and indeed they were, for a cruel giant made them fetch and carry water all night long when they should have been in bed. So Mani put out a long, long arm and snatched up the children and set them in the moon, pail and all. And there you can see them on any moonlit night for yourself.
This one is wonderfully strange. Frost giants, gold-maned horses, and a cosmic cow nourishing the universe. It's myth at its most imaginative. And although we're not starting from scratch in 2026, it's a fresh slate nonetheless, and the perfect opportunity to begin again. So I'll leave you now to reflect on your own beginnings and endings. And we'll see you next Tuesday for an episode that reveals a sneak peek at one of the anthologies we're publishing this month.
Thanks so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Flame Tree Myth and Fiction podcast and look forward to the next episode. Do recommend it to your friends. Goodbye for now.